So hello everyone, you are welcome to Queen's Fashion YouTube channel. If this is your first time, please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you will be notified when next I post a new video. So in this video I'll be showing you how to draft a basic bodice. Okay, so the first thing you are going to do is to divide your biggest circumference by 2. Here I'm using bust 35, waist 28. So the bust is bigger than the waist, so the waist measurement is 28 while the bust measurement is 35. So I'm going to divide that 35 into 2. Okay, so here I have 35 divided by 2 gives me 17.5. so here is my 17.5. so the box now is 17.5 in width. Okay, and the length is the waist measurement, so I'll be using waist 18. For the front length is 18 inches. Then for the back I'm going to use 16 inches for the back, so I'm going to mark 16 inches. Okay, then I'll bring it here also and mark my 15 inches. So after marking the 15 inches, I'm going to also roll it into a straight line. Okay, so having done this, now the next thing I'm going to do is to divide. Now before you mark your back length, you have to divide the box. You divide it into 2. Okay, can you see? Then you mark the midpoint. When you mark the midpoint, you mark what you have from the CF center front to the midpoint you marked. Then you bring the number down, then you mark and you roll it into a straight line. So having done this, now the next thing we are going to do is to mark the shoulder measurement. Okay, otherwise known as, is also known as the back measurement. So here I'm using back 13 inches. So 13 divided by 2 is going to give me 6.5. so I'm going to mark the 6.5 this way. After marking the 6.5, I'll mark the neck width. To get your neck width, divide your bust measurement by 12. Okay, now if you get 2.8, make sure you mark your 2.8. if you get 2.7, 2.5, make sure you use your accurate measurement. Okay, the 3 inches standard might not work for you, so I'm going to put down for bust 35 divided by 6 gives me 2.9. so I'll mark my 2.9. so then the depth also, I'm going to use the same 2.9. okay, if yours is 3, you make sure you mark your 3. Okay, having done this, now I'm going to square the neckline. Now I'm going to square it from the neck width. I will just square it down a little to this point. I will also square it to the neck depth here. So after that, I'm going to come in from this angle out here by 1 inch. So I'm going to come out by 1 inch from that angle to this point. So after that, I'm going to place my French curve. Okay, can you see? So I'll place my French curve this way just to achieve a nice curve. So here is it. This is my front neckline. So remember, we've marked the shoulder measurement divided by 2 here. So from that point, you are going to come down by 1.5 inches for the front. So you place your tape measure and come down by 1.5 inches for the front shoulder slope. You mark. Okay, so you mark. So after marking, you are going to connect it to the neck width. So you connect it straight to the neck width like so. When you are done with this, you come to the back. Also, the neck width you use on the front part here, you are also going to bring it to the back. Okay, so I'll place it from the center back line, then I will mark 2.9. so from that 2.9, I'm going to mark the back measurement 6.5. okay, from that 6.5, I will come down by 1 inch, then I'll mark. So after marking it, you also want to do the same thing, connect the neck width to the shoulder slope. Can you see? You connect it that way. Having done that, you mark the neck depth for the back is just 1 inch. Okay, so you place your tape measure this way and the mark 1 inch. When you are done marking the 1 inch, now the next thing you are going to do is to connect it. Okay, so to connect it, you can use this part of this ruler to connect that part. Okay, so can you see? So I've connected it. So when you are done with that, the next thing now is to get our chest line. So to get the chest line, what you are going to do is to divide your bust circumference by 6. Okay, then you add 1.5 inches. So for bust 35 divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches is 7.3. That's 7.3. I'm going to place it from the back. Okay, I'll place it from the back shoulder slope. Then I'll mark my 7.3 this way. Now after marking your 7.3, you move your tape measure to the shoulder line here. Then you mark what you have there to where you marked. So I have 8.3. remember we came down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope, so plus the 7.3 is going to give us 8.3. that 8.3, you bring it to this point, you marked it. Okay, you marked it here. You also bring it to the midpoint here, then you mark. You also bring it here to the front part here, then you mark. And the next thing you want to do is to rule it into a straight line. So when you are done ruling it into a straight line, the next thing you want to do is to bring your shoulder measurement. This part you marked, this shoulder line you marked, your back divided by 2, 6.5, you bring it down. Okay, then you mark 6.5. okay, you repeat the same thing on the front part, your shoulder measurement 6.5, then you mark. So from there you are going to connect it with broken lines this way. Just connect it this way. Can you see? So when you are done doing this now, so on this back now, you are going to divide what you have from the chest line now to the shoulder slope by 2. You divide it into 2, then you mark. Can you see? You mark it. Then from where you marked, you go in by half of an inch, 0.5 inch. You mark. So the first thing is to first connect the 0.5 inch this way. Then you come to the shoulder slope and connect it to that 0.5. okay, so you connect it this way to the 0.5. So having done that, on the front part you go up by either 2 inches or 3 inches. Okay, either 2 inches or 2.5. so I'm going to use 2.5 just to make sure that it's not up to the half of the measurement. Okay, just make sure you go up by either 2 or 3. Now you can measure what you have on this part. Here I have 3.75. so 3.75. so if you still use 3 inches here, it's still okay. But I will advise you that you use either 3 inches or you use 2.5. so I use 2.5 here. Then on this part, from the 2.5 inches you measured, you are going to come in by 0.75. okay, for the front, come down by 0.75. then you bring in your ruler and connect the shoulder slope to the 0.75. Having done this, the next thing you want to do now is to measure the bust measurement. So remember we divided this box by the bust circumference divided by 2. So if I should mark my bust circumference divided by 4 now, it's going to give me half of this, which is 8.75. can you see? 8.75. bust 35 divided by 4 will give me 8.75. so I'm going to connect this point here to the bust point. Now how do you get it perfectly well? On this angle here, you can use your angle 40. This is angle 40 here. This is angle 40 here. So you can mark that angle. and connect it straight like so. Can you see? Connect it like so with broken lines. Then you mark half of an inch. You mark either 0.5 or 0.75. I'm going to use 0.5 here. Okay, this will reduce the excess on the armpit area. So I'll be placing my armhole curve from that point here. For the front, I'm going to place it like so. I'll make sure it touches this point and the 0.5 inch. Okay, can you see the way I have placed it now? So it touches this part and the 0.75. If it's not touching this point here, don't worry, just make sure it touches the 0.5 here and the mid armhole here. So I've got to where I want, so I'm going to connect it that way. Okay, so it's not, you don't need to keep dragging your armhole curve to touch this point and this point. If you do it this way, you might have excess fabric here, so just place it to touch that 0.5 or 0.75. For the back, so I've marked my 0.75 here. I'm going to place it this way. Can you see? For the back, to touch this point 0.5 and this other point, then you have it perfect. Then you can now go ahead and connect as it is. Can you see? So now we've gotten our round armhole. The next thing we are going to do is to mark the bust point on the front line here. The bust point is, for an average person, it's within 10 inches to 10.5. I'm going to use 10.5 for this pattern, so I'm going to mark 10.5 this way. Okay, then I will also bring it to this point and mark 10.5. And the next thing I'm going to do now is to roll it into a straight line. This is the bust line now. So from this bust point, I'm going to mark the bust span, which is the nipple to nipple measurement. Mine is 3.5. okay, I will use 3.5. I'll mark 3.5 and I will also mark from this 3.5 here. You come down by 1 inch for the front. Okay, come down by 1 inch and put a dot. So from that point, this 3.5 inches on the waistline, you open it on both sides by 0.5. Then you connect it to this 1 inch below the bust point. Okay, so having done this, the next thing now is to come to the back here. You are also going to put that on the back. So for the back, you are going to mark your for the back, you are going to come down from the waistline. You come in by ½ inch for the back tightening. If you want to use the basic pattern on another skirt, you can actually alter it more than ½ inch, but for tutorial purpose, I'm going to mark ½ inch. Okay, this is ½ inch. Then from the back measurements there, I'm still going to measure my waist divided my bust span, which is 3.5. Can you see? Here is my 3.5 from the back waistline, from the back, from the center back line, 3.5. On both sides, I will mark. I'm going to mark ½ inch on both sides. Can you see? I've marked ½ inch sideways. So on the chest line, you are also going to mark the same 3.5. So I'm going to mark 3.5 also. From there, you come down by 1 inch also for the back. Then you put your dots. Okay, now having done that, I'm going to connect it straight down. Now we've gotten this. Now remember, we still have our back tightening here. You are going to mark what you have on the chest line to the midpoint for the back. You mark it here. I have 3.75. I'll bring it here and mark 3.75. So after marking my 3.75, I'm going to connect this back, this half inch I marked here. I'm going to connect it straight to that 3.75. so this is it. Can you see? So this part is going to be cut out. So that is the back tightening. So if you want to add zipper allowance, it means you are going to be marking your zipper allowance from this back tightening. If you want to add 0.5, you mark 0.5 all the way out like that and connect it. Okay, so this is, you know, the basic bodice dear sealmate. Okay, now we are going to mark the waist measurement. Now from this back tightening, you mark the waist measurement. I'm using waist 28 divided by 4 is going to give me 7. So I'm going to put my 7 here plus 1 inch that intake, that makes it 8. So this 8 inches I marked here, I'm going to connect it straight to this bust point. Okay, to this bust point for the back. Can you see? So that is the back waist. Okay, now having done this, the next thing you are going to do is to also take the waist measurement for the front, which is, you know, 28 divided by 4, which is 7 inches. 7 inches, you know, plus 1 inch that intake, it will give me 8 inches. So I'm going to mark the 8 inches here, and the next thing I will do now is to connect that 8 inches to the bust, you know, measurements. Can you see? You connect it this way. So when you are done with this, now the next thing you are going to do is to measure what you have as difference between the back length and the front length. This is the front length and here is the back length. So from this back length, you mark what you have. Here I have, you know, 2 inches as difference. So I'm going to bring that 2 inches here from the bust line now, not from the chest line, from the bust line. Then I will mark the 2 inches like so. Can you see? So I've marked the 2 inches. The next thing I will do now is to connect it straight to the bust point. Now I've connected it to the bust point, but if you are busty, you can mark 1 inch away from the bust point, then you connect your dart to it. But if you want to alter this bodice, that is if you want to sew your dart on your fabric, but if you want to alter this bodice, you know, to make another, you know, design, you need to connect it to the bust point so that when you close, so that it will be very easy for you to close the bust dart. Because if your dart does not touch the point or the bust point, is not going to be closed. Okay, so dear sealmates, this is it for the basic pattern. This is how to draft your basic body. So if you find this video helpful, kindly give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, so when next I upload a new video, you know, you'll be notified. Okay, now for the front and the back length, immediately you close this dart, the front and the back is going to be the same. So you can watch the basic gown video, you know, to check that point. So this is it now. So I'll go ahead now and cut it out. Okay, so now before I go ahead to cut the front, I'm going to use my tracing wheel to trace the dart point here so that it weakens the paper, so that I'll be able to close the dart. Okay, so I'm going to close it like this. I actually doubled the paper because I want to use it for another thing. So I'm not going to cut out the dart because I'm still going to use it. Okay, so here is it. So can you see now, when you close it to the bust point, this is what you have. Can you see? This is what you have. Now before cutting it out, I'm going to place I'm going to connect this bust point now to the main waistline. Can you see? Just connect it this way so that everything will rhyme together. Just connect it straight to this waistline. Remember, this is still the waistline. Can you see? Just connect it like so. Can you see? So now I've gone ahead to cut it out. So let's place it now side by side. Can you see? Let me push the bust point up. So that is the bust effect. It's going to come out, okay? Unless your drafting is not accurate. But if your drafting and your measurements, you know, are accurate, everything is just going to balance, and you know, you'll be surprised at the results. So here is it. This is our basic bodice. You can see that everything is matching up. And this is it, there's your mates. Just like I said, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Thank you very much. See you in my next video. Bye.